Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily presented by eBay. I'm Dave DuFour. Coming up, we got Jon Krawczynski here to preview the Minnesota Timberwolves. Will Anthony Edwards be an MVP? Is this the year that Rudy Gobert drops off? And who are they going to trade for? Welcome back to the NBA Daily presented by eBay. I'm Dave DuFour here with Jon Krawczynski. So that means it's time to talk Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. Jon, hope you had a good, relaxing summer. Are you ready for the season start?
Yeah, I am. It was relaxing. You know, we're used to seeing the Timberwolves make huge trades and do all sorts of crazy stuff. But it was really a quiet summer for them. So I got to kind of relax a little bit and hang out. And so now it's basketball time, though. I'm itching to get back in the arena. I'm itching to really see what this team is all about and how this whole league really unfolds. So I'm ready for it for sure.
What's the biggest change from last year to this one for the Wolves? I mean, they've been pretty outside of the Karl-Anthony Towns Randall trade. That's actually kind of been consistent the last few seasons as far as the roster goes otherwise.
Yeah, and it's even more so this summer, Dave. I mean, when you look at it, Nickeil Alexander-Walker did leave for Atlanta, kind of priced out of things here in Minnesota, and he was one of their top 7-8 guys, on the team. But other than that, everyone is back, and so it is remarkably consistent from last year to this year, and so I do think that they will miss Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the locker room, on the court, really important player for them. I think you will see a few more of the young guys like Terrence Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark get opportunities to play where they did not get much of that last year. But when you look like 1 through 7 roughly in this rotation, it's all the same. And, you know, Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels are kind of the young core. Then you have Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley and Julius Randle as the hardy vets. You mix in Dante DiVincenzo there. And but yeah, this is as sort of consistent from year to year as they've been in a long time. And I think they're really hoping that continuity bodes well for them going into this season.
Is that where they're expecting the growth to come from? Continuity and chemistry?
Yes, absolutely. Because I do think, they made the trade for Karl-Anthony Towns for Randle and DiVincenzo literally 2 days before training camp began. And it was, especially the first 2.5 months of the season or so, was just a real slog because these guys had never played together. They were trying to figure things out. If you talk to, many players who have had the experience, when you play with Rudy Gobert, it takes a good year to kind of really figure things out defensively, offensively. And so there is a belief that with all of the familiarity that they now have, with all of the lessons they learned about each other last season, and even they still got to the Western Conference Finals, but I think that they are really confident that there's just a greater sense of identity and a greater just kind of chemistry and cohesion right now in this training camp as opposed to last training camp when it was just like kind of the dynamite was pushed right before the camp started. So they will be leaning into that a lot and believing that cohesion is going to carry them hopefully further than last year.
Do they have any kind of breakout candidates on this roster? I mean, obviously Anthony Edwards is going to get a lot of attention, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But who could pop from this team?
So I think a couple. I'll start with the first one that probably is the chance to be really impactful is Jaden McDaniels. I do think that he's going into year 6. He has already established himself as an elite defender in this league, but I think that there's a belief that there's more to his offensive game. He's not a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, but I think you're going to see him put the ball on the floor a little bit more, make plays, run pick and roll with Rudy Gobert. I think they're going to just try and be a little more creative with him offensively. And
when he's aggressive, he can score.
Absolutely. I think, Dave, he's actually their best finisher at the rim, especially in transition. Ant struggled with that last year. Several other guys are okay there, but Jaden is really, with his length, is just able to rise up over people and score. And so I do think that you're going to see, or they're going to try to make him much more of a dynamic two-way player than just all defense, and, anything offensively is essentially a bonus. And he played really, really well offensively in the playoffs last year. And so I think that there's a belief that he will take a leap. The other one will be Terrence Shannon Jr. kind of sliding.
Those playoff minutes were huge, man.
Yeah. Just, he's a 25-year-old second-year player, and he's a grown man. Like, he is 6'6", 220 pounds. He plays aggressively. He runs the floor. They need to be better in transition. He's a guy that does that very well. He gets downhill. And with Alexander Walker gone, there are more minutes to be had there. And I think that his combination of physicality and just breakneck speed are going to be, kind of a revelation for people around the league who haven't watched the Timberwolves very much.
You mentioned the older guys. I mean, Mike Conley, 38 years old. Not quite sure how a guy his size is still doing it, but he's going to be out there again this season. And Rudy Gobert, a little bit older. Any worry about a drop off from those guys like this year?
I mean, there has to be, right, Dave? I mean, yeah. I mean, Conley at 38, he did not look great in the Western Conference Finals in particular, just in terms of the Wolves needed someone at that spot who could hurt a defense for not paying attention to him. And he would make a three-pointer here or there, but in terms of creating and putting pressure on a defense, he wasn't there. Last year, his floater, which has been like one of the great shots in the league, really abandoned him. It just wasn't there. I think he was working through some injuries. His summer last year he was really on the shelf with wrist and leg injuries, and so he didn't get to work on his game. He feels stronger and healthier coming into camp this year, and I thought, Dave, honestly, that they might just kind of gradually and easily kind of move away from Mike Conley. But right now, the talk around here in Wolves camp is that he is going to be the starter. They're going to put the ball in his hands a little bit more. They're going to try and empower him in a different way. And we'll see if that helps neutralize some of the drop off that we saw last season. With Rudy the same way. Rudy came into last year and he just wasn't as impactful defensively in the first couple of months. I mean, I think the Karl-Anthony Towns trade did kind of mess with him a little bit too, because Cat was one of the guys on the team that would throw him the ball, that would get him involved. And without him there, I think that he felt a little bit stuck for a little while. And on the second half of the season, he played great defensively. He was really, really good. More of the old Rudy that we're used to seeing, but that will be another one that you watch. He looks great coming into camp. He looks like he's in great shape, but he is getting a little bit older. Big men do age at a different clip. And so that's one thing that you are going to kind of keep an eye on early with the Timberwolves is was the last year's kind of struggles, was that related more to the trade and instability and things, or was it a physical decline? We'll find out pretty early, I think, in this season about that, Dave.
And Rudy had that rough run at the Olympics too. Let's not forget that, right? And whatever the injury was, but he also was playing in the Olympics. And I think that for bigs, especially, it can be a detriment. Like, I'm worried, like, you looking ahead to this season, Eurobasket, Rudy didn't participate this year, but a lot of guys did, Jokic, who seems like a unbeatable machine. So maybe it won't affect him, but Giannis is a guy that I'm paying attention to. How tired is he going to be coming off the international competition? Yeah,
I just want to reiterate that point, David. It's a great one because for the last, I think it's 5 or 6 years, Rudy's been Olympics, World Championships, Eurobasket with Team France. And this was the first year he did not play. And I do think that it was important for him not to play. I do think he needed a summer to recharge. I think his body at this age is not just conducive to playing all of those games year round. And so that if you're an optimist about Rudy, which there are a lot of people around here who are, that could really factor in as well to just being much fresher, much sharper at the start of this season than he was last year.
Yeah. I mean, his physical conditioning is, he is elite. as far as being a conditioned center. And so he looked tired to me at the start of last year, and that's not typical for Rudy. But let's get to Anthony Edwards. Is this the year that we have real MVP buzz for Anthony Edwards?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the plan is. We do have to be fair and say when you're going up against Jokic and Shea, I mean, to really be a part of that conversation, it's a high bar to clear, right? I mean, it's like the numbers that they put up. It makes it really tough to crack into that conversation. But I do think that if the Timberwolves are, in that top 3 or 4 in the West, Ant's going to be a huge part of it. And he is a charismatic dude. He's very dynamic. I think that he has spent the summer working on a few of the things that were struggles for him last year, including finishing at the rim, including like working a little more mid-range, a little bit more post. So, I think he wants to be more consistent defensively as well. If he is able to achieve 3 of those things and take his game to one more level, then yes, I think you are going to see MVP conversation. And obviously it starts with the Timberwolves being really successful on the court. But I think that there is a belief that he has one more step to take. It's probably the hardest step from a great player to an MVP candidate. But I think that he has that in him. And whether it's this year or next year, we're right in that zone of kind of rocketing into that stratosphere.
I mean, he'll have to win. Right.
That's it.
Going to be the important thing, right? He's going to have to win. But the other thing, I'm glad you brought this up, the finishing in the playoffs last year, right? The contact really got to him. I wonder if he's going to see even more contact during the regular season this year, not just double teams, but just maybe they put bigger guys on him. He's been a guy that I think other teams have focused on when they think about, hey, we've got to guard these bigger guards. I know Denver was thinking about that after they got eliminated by the Wolves a few years ago. It's part of why I think they were okay moving on from KCP, who just wasn't quite big enough. Could you see other teams start throwing threes on this guy? I mean, like just try to just overwhelm him with physicality and punish him a little bit?
Yeah, I do think that there's going to be some of that, because the other part of that is that, if you take that physical approach and he doesn't get a few whistles, he gets upset like that. Yeah. It really does bother him, and you can maybe get him off of his game that way. The other thing that I would imagine that you will see a lot of, that we saw especially against OKC, but really a lot in the playoffs, was that they are going to force Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels to make shots, to do something offensively to damage them. Basically, it'll be, we're loading up on Anthony Edwards. We're going to double him. We're going to bump and bang him. We're going to really keep his lanes to the basket clogged as much as possible. And we're going to force him to drive kick to Jaden in the corner. And if he's going to hit threes, we'll shake your hand. We're going to force him to try and do something that he doesn't really feel comfortable with, which is throw that little lob to Rudy Gobert. And if he beats you that way, then you shake his hand. But I do think that the main approach to the Timberwolves offense this season is going to be, how do we frustrate Anthony Edwards with doubles, with physical play, and just by completely ignoring some of the other players that he shares the court with. And I think you're going to see a heavy diet of that until the Wolves prove that they can consistently win games when that approach is the way it is.
Yeah, he needs to watch a bunch of Steph Curry tape, just think about all those times Steph gives the ball up and then gets moving. I think if you get Anthony Edwards, if he can give the ball up when the double comes and then get on the move with his athleticism, I mean, he could really wreak some havoc. But if nothing else, his gravity should open up things for other people. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back. I want to see if the Wolves have any more trades up their sleeves. All right, John, this team has not been shy the last few years about making big moves. Now, I don't think they've got any big moves that they can make. You've got a lot of guys already. Is this a year where they may have to make some moves on the margins during the season, maybe at the trade deadline, to get the team to where it needs to be?
It's possible, Dave. I mean, I will just say that if Giannis makes it clear that he wants out of Milwaukee, you will hear the Wolves jump into it, just like 20 other teams will jump into that conversation. But let's just put it in more realistic terms right now. I do believe that you'll be watching point guard a lot going into this with Mike Conley, with Rob Dillingham. Bones Highland is their third point guard right now. And if Mike looks a little too old or gets injured, if Rob Dillingham looks a little too young and isn't quite ready yet, then I think that is a position that you would look at as one where they would try to upgrade. But I do think they're very invested in Rob Dillingham. They want him to work out. And so they're going to give plenty of runway for him to learn on the job, to get some minutes and get going. But if come February, the team is kind of languishing a little bit, and one of the main reasons is that they're just not getting enough dynamic play out of the point guard spot, that would be one that I would look at as an area to upgrade, or that they would consider, an outside person to try and bring in and be, someone who can run the show, can make shots, but also can create his own shot to help take some of that pressure off Anthony Edwards.
What pieces do they have to go and get a guy like that?
Well, I mean, they have young guys. They have Rob Dillingham. They have Terrence Shannon. They have, they have some young players that would certainly be, I think, attractive to other teams. If you look at then you also have, Julius Randle. If you want to go big and you need a big contract to match, to make a deal work. He has a big contract. They love Julius Randle here. I don't think they want to trade him, but if you're looking at getting into, let's just De'Aaron Fox, whatever, something like that, and you have to make the math work, that's a possibility. Rudy Gobert is getting a little bit older, but his contract is short, and so that's another big piece of money that you could use to pull off a big deal. And so they have sort of options. If a team wants young pieces, if a team wants more of a veteran, that they would be able to kind of dangle to try and make something happen.
Yeah. What's the biggest swing factor this season? What gets them from being in that second tier in the West to the top tier with Oklahoma City and Denver?
Yeah, I think that if they find there's two things. I'm going to just kind of operate from the assumption that Ant is going to make another leap. I just think that he works too hard. He's been too good. That's going to happen. So what else needs to happen? I think that if Jaden McDaniels really ascends to a true two-way stud, and is someone that can hurt an opposing defense when they try to put their worst defensive player on him, that's going to be one big factor. And then the other one is if they find a way to get kind of a more of a requisite production from the one spot, and whether that's Mike Conley, whether they end up putting Dante DiVincenzo there and kind of muddling through the playmaking aspects of it, but get more shooting in there and more defense, or whether Rob Dillingham ascends. If that happens, then I think you're looking at a really well-rounded team with very few holes to poke in it. I think that they're going to come out very strong because of the continuity and familiarity. But if it's a Jaden McDaniels or a point guard really solidifies, then I do think this team goes from another interesting contender to one that says, yeah, they could beat Oklahoma City in a playoff series. They could beat Denver they always beat Denver, so they could beat them again. So that's what's kind of standing in their way right now, and what we want to see if it can come to fruition.
How do you feel? What do you feel is the realistic outcome for this season? We get to, July. You and I were hanging out at Summer League. What happened?
Yeah, I'm high on this season actually, Dave, because I think that when you look at what they are capable of doing. 2 years ago, they came in after 1 year of Rudy, and it was a slog, but then they were really familiar with each other and they just took off. Mid-50s wins, Western Conference Finals. I think that's on the table again, and I think they can be really hard to play in the playoffs. And so if you look at that, I think at the end of the day, they're low to mid 50s in wins. And then with the right matchups, they absolutely can go to the conference finals again. If everything breaks right for them, they could take another step. They're not the favorites. They shouldn't be, but I think they have enough talent and enough depth to really be a real factor in the Western Conference race this season.
I hope so. I hope so, because as much as I'm excited to watch OKC and Denver, and I think that those are the two best teams in the West, it would be great if a couple of these other teams, if things broke right for the Lakers and the Wolves, and we actually had a real battle come playoff time. And we got pretty epic playoff last year. I'd like to see it, if we could get another elite team in the West, I think it really could shake things up. Jon Krawczynski, thank you for spending time with us. Spent so much time on the show last year. Everybody go and read him over at The Athletic. I have a feeling that this is going to be a fascinating year, not just for the Wolves, but especially for Anthony Edwards, because this is the year, I think, that he's a real MVP guy, not just hey, he's young and he's up and coming. I think that this is the year. 30 points a game, I think this is the season. So we'll see. I don't know. Jon, I'm going to not put those words in your mouth, but I'll say them out loud. Thank you for hanging out with us, guys. Thanks for listening. Go and like and subscribe over on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, and we will be back with more team previews later on this week.